Hello guys, welcome. And just a couple of things. I noticed that recently there's a lot of AI stuff. So are you guys able to hear me? And are you guys able to maybe type one in there just to make sure that there's no bots in here? If you're a real person, let me know. Tammy, nice meeting you. Am I going to see other people here as well? Oh, sorry. Hello. Okay. By the way, this session will make it very engaging. Back and forth discussion. I'll show you guys depending on the level of, I guess, knowledge in this group. I'll either show you guys the live deals or recently done deals. That way, you guys can ask any questions. And I want to be fully transparent because people are always asking, "Oh, why do you guys run this sessions? What's the intention behind it?" We do have a exclusive mastermind and then the coaching offers. That's not the purpose of this call, but we do have that in place. So I typically use Tuesday session to meet with people, get to know each other, see if I can offer some help. And if the information right here is aligned with what you are thinking, you can either take it and implement it, or we can have another conversation and see whether or not this makes sense for you to go through. Okay, so that's another discussion. In this discussion, I won't hold back anything. I just want to give out as much value as possible. So any questions, feel free to ask. And then, what do you call that? Yeah, maybe we'll start with asking everybody a couple questions here. How many people actually own a property in Canada at this moment? Hey, John. We got two Johns here. Used to and sold in 2018. Diva, what happened? So, okay, and I guess how many people came to the conclusion? Actually, sorry, another question. Where are you guys located? Are all of like in BC, Alberta, Ontario? Wow, a lot more Ontario this time.
Oh,
Okay, Diva, you made some money. That's awesome. Okay, good. In Toronto. What? But okay. Question for you is that if you kept that property, how like let's say until now, like how much would that be worth it at this moment? Would have been probably 500 to 600. Yeah, be a little bit higher. Okay, sounds good. Okay, and one last question is that what has you guys looked into the US market? I'm gonna dive into a lot of details very shortly, but I just want to gather where everybody's head is. Okay, 390K square feet. The market is now profitable here, looking to pivot. Okay, anything else? What's the main objective here? If you guys can kind of let me know. Producing cash flow or appreciation, just so I can understand. Generation wealth. Okay. Timing is very clear. Cash flow. Sounds good. Cash flow. Okay. Perfect. Okay, sorry, I'm just closing my tab right now, and then let's dive into this quickly. And so all of your goal is not to run a very active approach, is to buy something that allows the cash flow, and over time you guys can grow the portfolio and eventually use that to replace your current income. Okay. Perfect. Sorry, one last thing. I just need to open up one file and we can get this started. Okay, first thing first, I want to introduce myself quickly for those who don't know who we are and who I am. Just want to give you guys a bit of an introduction here. Um, we, so I actually started real estate investing back in 2010. So very, very long time ago when I was still in school. I was completing my engineering degree. And then my mom actually sent me down before school starts. My mom sent me down. She told me, she's just like, Ping, you got two jobs. One is finish your degree. You know, we're Asian family. You cannot fail, right? Like, just don't embarrass us, basically. The second thing is just like, okay, as you're scaling it, as you're finishing your degree, I also want you to, she wrote 20 on my notebook. I still remember. I'm just like, what's that? And then she's just like, you need to have 20 tenants paying you rent by the time you finish school. Okay, so she gave me a big assignment. She's just like, I'm willing to support you in all of that. But part of the reason why my parents were able to actually retire at the age of 50 was because they run small business back in Taiwan. And they're very diligent with their real estate portfolio from their early 20s or mid 20s, right? And then they were building up that portfolio so that we had the opportunity to, come to a Western culture and then and explore different options. So that was the main thing that she did very successfully back in Taiwan, and then she just wanted me to replicate the exact same process so that I could also provide the opportunities for my future and for my kids. Okay, so that's what I did. First one, 272K. 2010, 2011, 2012, 2014. These are the four student rentals. At the end of my school term, I had 28 rooms and 27 tenants paying me rent. This is literally me being in school while cleaning, while dealing with lease agreements, all that stuff, right? So it was very interesting. Back then, didn't really enjoy it, didn't see the point of it. And then I realized that in 2015, 2016, when I was in engineering field, the regular corporate, I guess, a setup, I realized that I really can't see myself work, 20, 30 years just to get to, senior engineer position, right? Like I couldn't see that being my life. And then I decided that, you know what, I'm going to just dive into real estate full time after the contract ends. So I had an opportunity to renew, but my job was not anything fancy. I was in material engineering, so I was looking at microscope all the time. It was a very easy decision for me not to renew. And then after that, I started doing a lot of active approach. So as you guys can see, a lot of flips, a lot of improvement. And this is also one thing that my mom used to teach me all the time. Don't buy anything turnkey, right? She actually gave me a couple very strong investing philosophy that I always kept in mind. Always improvement. We have to be making money on the buy. We have to find ways to improve value. And more importantly, we have to cash flow from day one. Okay, so this is the stuff that I was doing. It's not all of them, but it's more of the recent projects. When we started doing the ADU conversions, commercial stuff, right? Flips, right? Just a bunch of stuff, and it was all doing pretty decently until 2022. Just wanted to kind of share with you guys my thought process when it comes to real estate or pivoting to the States. In 2022, we have a couple projects that we executed successfully. Everything went really well, and we even control the budget better with our project management, and we still end up losing money, right? So at that point, price point is so much higher than what it used to be. Because up to 2017, when I first purchased this building, 2017, this six unit, legal sixplex only cost me 525K only, right? Even for a build, oh, this one was even cheaper. This one was a tavern, old tavern, that we bought it at 350K. But we had to do a full renovation, conversions, and all that stuff, and turn that into a 7 unit building afterwards. And this building was a commercial unit that I got in COVID time. It was listed at 1.8. And then dropped price as the lockdown continued. After 1 year of hold, the landlord decided to just give it, like, basically accept or consider my offer. My offer at the time was 1.1. So 1.8, 1.7, 1.5, 1.3, and I'm throwing an offer for 1.1. We reached an agreement for 1.1, 1.15. Okay, so these are kind of my story from 2010 to 2022. But the main reason why we made that pivot was because all of this stuff was very very nicely executed, and I enjoyed it, and I made a fortune, like a decent amount of money from here. But then when I started realizing the same method doesn't actually apply anymore, this is where I need to kind of pivot into the States. So we started diving into the US market. We started acquiring properties and learning the process. Made a lot of costly mistakes. Real estate is not always pretty. Let's put it this way. So when we pivot in there, almost every single step of the way, I pay my tuition into it through mistakes or through paying a premium or overpaying certain people, right? To learn that, okay, well, it could have been done differently. But regardless, I never regret that decision, because when I started thinking about Canadian market, it's very simple. We had such a nice ride already. A lot of properties actually double, triple in value. In some cases, like even quadruple at the peak of the market. I just don't see that happening in the next 5 to 10 years, in Canada, right? If you tell me to bet on something, if you say the next 10 years, all the average pricing in Canadian market is going to go from 800K to $1 million, all the way to $2 million, I don't believe that, right? And if that happens, we're in bigger trouble, in my opinion. So with the way that things are going, I had a great like my mom really pushed me into this. I had a great foundation set up. Now I want to pivot into the States and then try to look for a market that can compromise my current portfolio. And that's in tier 2 city, more affordable. And I can get back into 1% rule one more time, which I'll ask you guys some questions afterwards. Cash flowing properties and all that stuff to compensate for lack of cash flow in my current portfolio in Canada. Okay, so that was really the main reason why I pivot into the States. And then ever since then, we're able to grow. We understand the market dynamics a lot different. The financing is also a lot different. But people in general is more, I want to say, more business driven. Data is a lot more transparent. So I find out that there's way more things that we could do over there in that specific market. So we're continuing to scale. Again, nothing is easy, but it's simpler, in my opinion, as the restriction in Canada continue to increase. And that's basically what I've been seeing here. So one of the things I want to ask you guys though, who knows red and blue states? Like if you guys can tell me that if we were to buy a rental property, which one do we want to go for? Red or blue? Okay. Political perspective aside, by the way, let's just talk about which one is more in landlord's favor. Okay, okay, red is more landlord friendly. Okay, are we all on board with this, or does anybody not or anybody is not sure about like what these two means? Okay, so let's do this. Red and blue. Typically, red states means that it's more business friendly. But that gray. No, this is also more towards I guess the color in between. Okay, so red is where we want to go for. It's more landlord friendly, which means you get to collect security deposit. I know we have some people from Calgary or Alberta like in here, but in Ontario and in BC, you don't get to collect. I guess you don't get to collect the security deposit, right? And then eviction typically will take a lot longer. Okay, my last eviction in Ontario took me 13 months, and that completely destroyed my belief in humanity because it was something really black and white, and it was causing a lot of issue with the other tenants in the same building, and they just know how to play the rule really well, and then end up taking 13 months for the tenants to move out. Big loss, but this typically like in red states doesn't actually happen. Like I'm not saying that it will never happen, but the chances or the rule is a lot more in the landlord's flavor. So that's why like when I'm looking for another place to invest in, I want to make sure that I have a little bit more control. Okay, that's number one. And number two is that actually before I start, do you guys have any idea where you want to invest when thinking about the US market? Give me an idea. Ohio, Texas. Perfect. Got a couple units over there too. Anywhere else? Detroit or Okay, Florida, Ohio, Louisiana, Erie, Indiana. Okay, question for you guys. People, so Michelle, you mentioned about Louisiana. Why do you say that? Do you have connection over there or Pittsburgh? Nice. Guys, let's make this interactive. Okay, you've been there. Anything else? Feel free to unmute yourself. I want to get to know you guys. And then hopefully I can find a couple people who are willing to share their financial situation. And then second half of this call, I'll turn that into a more custom, I guess, strategy session for you guys. Your son wants to move to Texas. Is it for the weather reason or the second half of the winter?
To me, it's doesn't matter really where. I'm looking for the opportunity. I'm looking
Okay.
for something that I don't have to go and do the work myself anywhere. So location is
Irrelevant for you.
kind of irrelevant to me.
I see.
It's opportunity.
Okay. Okay, and obviously you're looking for cash flow as well, right? Looking for something that will cash flow, that will, again, like basically, if we put it in a plain English, it's a box that can produce you cash.
Correct. That I can hang
Awesome.
on to or sell if the market dictates selling. I'm not in. I don't have any need to sell it or anything like that. If I could hang on, I'd hang on to it if I need to. But yeah, it's purely
Got it.
right opportunity in the right place, regardless of the place.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so very quickly, the way that I view where to pick the market, because I think this is a really important aspect here. There are a couple of things I want to mention here, and I've been implementing this as much as I can throughout my investing journey. One is cash flow. Okay, my mom used to tell me that, or still tells me that cash flow beats everything, right? Market goes up and down, irrelevant to you. If your cash flows, buys you time. That's why you're in real estate for appreciation. Or if it's only for appreciation with no cash flow, there's way more financial product out there that you can do. Okay, so cash flow is the most important thing. Second thing is you need to be able to recycle your capital. Okay, find ways to recycle your capital. So I always have these two in mind, and this is why I never actually invest in condo, pre-con, because condo typically doesn't cash flow. I can't really improve the units, right? I won't have a predictable way to recycle my capital, and which means I'm gonna be violating this principle as well. Okay, so keep this in mind. I'm gonna circulate back in a little bit. Now on the right hand side, I appreciate Jove. Wait, is that how I pronounce your name?
Yeah, it's Jeff.
Oh, Jeff. Sorry.
Yeah, that's
I
okay.
apologize. Okay, so Jeff, so the way to really determine where I want to invest into the States is through a couple of things. If I want cash flow, it almost has to be a tier 2 city. Okay? Tier 1 city means that a place where we really enjoy our vacation, raising families and all that stuff, such as Florida, Texas, Arizona, Vegas, California, and all these areas. But I'm not even going to talk about anything in blue states. I'm talking about red states. So if I go into home affordability, right here, anything I see least affordable or less affordable, I'm not going to make any cash flow work over there, including taxes, by the way. Guys, like Texas was also a biggest attraction for me. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to be staying there for the next like 2 months, from March to May, in there with my family. Just want to experience the lifestyles and everything. I started over there 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, in Texas. They're not making me any money because the property tax is extremely high. And also, I found out that I'm constantly competing with the new builds. So Texas here is a little bit more towards the affordable side, but it's still a tier 1 city that doesn't actually make any sense. Okay, not to mention Florida and all these areas. So right here, based on the affordability, I know that my options are limited into more like a Midwest. Considering the tornado zone right here, you pretty much remove a bunch of here, a bunch of the, I guess, states right here. So really, that's what we're looking for, right? And but in the states, another thing that's really interesting is that it's all super scattered, right? You go from A neighborhood into B, C, D in a not in a transitional way. You can go from A, B wealthy neighborhood or decent neighborhood into a ghetto very, very soon. Okay, sometimes it's like a matter of just one turn, and then you're like, oh, well, like what's this, right? So this is also what one thing that I guess I noticed as soon as I started buying or expanding into the States. So I started looking into crime rate as well. So when I started looking into crime rate, again, nothing's guaranteed, but at the same time, you can kind of pick and choose where the crime rate is relatively lower. So that's why Michigan, Detroit, as much as it's very interesting to me, I drove through the city a few times. I'm just like, I don't know if I want to take the bet, right? On here, I can if I really want to, dive into this one and really get to know the market and zip code each neighborhood. But I just like Ohio slightly better. Okay, so that's why I pick Ohio. Also, proximity for me is 4 hour drive. For some of you guys, it might be a little bit longer, but to me, I'm just like if I want to pick one state that will 100% cash flow that's closer to me, crime rate is slightly lower, right? Then Ohio is not a bad, I guess, a bet for me to start. And my goal here is not to fall in love with Ohio. It's just to find a place to start investing and get to know the market and get to know the entire process. And as I'm scaling, I can keep finding the most suitable market as I grow. Okay, so these are the main reason why, or the trend of thoughts that all of us need to have, is to remove the personal needs and personal, I guess, desire away from the investment. Because the moment that you combine the both, some people might say, "Oh, I want to buy a cottage." Use that towards as my investment, and then I can also enjoy. The moment that you do that, you end up getting you're kind of what's the right word? You're having for both ends. You can't optimize the ROI, and it's not also that great for the personal needs because then every single month or every single year you're locked into that place. So vacation home is totally different from investment. That's just one thing that I want to put it out there. Focus on being directionally correct with your investing belief. Make sure that this is a vehicle to slowly replace your time, and then and make sure that you can find ways to recycle your capital, which means every single deal that you should do that you buy should be value add approach as well. Okay, does this make sense or? Give me a one if you feel like okay this is clear, and then that way I can keep moving on to the next one. Okay, feel free to disagree as well. Like I know some people will be like, no, I like that's not the way I'm thinking about investment. Like feel free to have a debate, healthy debate here. Okay, and also I'm not afraid to share my losses too. So if there's anything that you feel like okay, well, Ping, I wanted to know like some of the challenge that you're facing, I'll be the first one to tell you because those are painful. Okay, kind of tenants that you get will be challenging in those areas. The moment that you get into a really bad neighborhood, those tenants are typically really, really hard to deal with because they don't really care about eviction. And at the time, in those areas, you're going to be put in a position where you can't find quality tenants. So you end up settling your expectation with standard. And that's how you can end up getting the wrong tenants in the building that don't even care about the credit, don't even care about the eviction. And that's where things become a nightmare. Okay, so that's typically what I notice over there. My longest I want to say eviction in Ohio is 2 months only so far in the past 4 years. Okay, 2 months because I know that they're gonna care about credit being hit, having the eviction. So I pay them 2K to support them to move. I say if you don't cooperate, I'm also gonna not renew the lease, which means I can still apply for eviction, right? And once we go into that route, there's no turning back. So why don't I help you do this? That's at least part of the way with some money in your pocket, and then we can just do things nicely, right? And I'm holding the deposit. I was also holding the cash flow keys, the funds for them to move. So the transition was a lot easier. Okay, and this will never happen in Ontario, by the way. So. Pennsylvania is actually pretty decent as well. Pennsylvania, the I don't want to say the issue, it's just a little bit more pricey. So you're probably not going to see as big of a cash flow. Cash flow might be like typically break even unless you run Airbnb. Okay, how do you manage this without being present? Great question. I'm gonna touch on that, boots on the ground team, and then how we manage a lot of things remotely. Okay, Detroit, lots of plane population, business growth opportunities, tons of cheap hobbies. Yep. So Ken, if you dive into Detroit, we actually do have a few members who only focus in Detroit. And the auction process is something that I'm willing to share as well. Auction process will allow you to get properties, but you really need to know the area and the boots on the ground team as well. You need to know where not to invest. Okay, so once you actually understand the location, the neighborhoods, then you can do pretty well over there. Okay, but the goal here is that you have to be very hands-on in Detroit, in my opinion. Okay, let me move on to the next thing because I want to make sure that we can also start structuring things a little bit different. So number one is what I call strategies. When I'm getting into the states, I want to look at three things. Again, I'm not that smart. I learned a lot of things from just observing and also like my mom's lessons. Strategy is one of them, market and neighborhoods. And the last thing is properties. Okay, so very often one of the major mistakes that we're seeing, well, is that major or rookie mistakes that we're seeing is that when people talk about real estate investing, people want to look into properties right away. Biggest issue is that you want to actually anchor a strategy from high level. Figure out your strategy first. Go into the market and neighborhoods. Make sure that this is actually the right thing for you to do. Then you go into the properties. That's where you do your due diligence on the property. If you do it in a reverse way, if you look at properties first and start getting realtors, property managers, or even wholesalers sending you deals, you're only looking at properties initially. And this will cloud your judgment by thinking, okay, well, I can do this, I can do that. One of my biggest loss is that I turned a supposed to be a long-term rental into a Airbnb. I did that because Ontario market was not cash flowing anymore, and then I got that done, and I'm just like initially I want to flip it, and then I'm just like worst case I can rent it, but then I didn't actually calculate or do enough due diligence at the peak of the market, and the rent doesn't even support my mortgage. So I had to turn that into Airbnb. So I was looking at the properties, and then I kept changing strategy, and this is where I end up taking a 130K loss for that specific properties. Okay, so strategy has to be really clear, and then you work through the market neighborhoods, and then you figure out the details of the properties. Every time that I have bad deals, it's typically because the sequence is in the wrong order. Okay, so strategy wise, now I'm gonna bring this over here. Cash flow has to be the number one thing. Recycle your capital. Now the second thing is the things that I also want to mention is that you have to have a scaling point with this business. Meaning, actually, how many people own more than 3 properties? If you guys can drop the message in the group chat. Anyone own more than 3 properties? You own 3. Awesome. Okay. 4 properties. Nice. Let me ask you guys a question. Do you guys do a cash out refi to buy the second one? Refinance process and basically doing the BRRRR project, BRRRR process. Okay. And the next question is, do all of your properties cash flow right now in today's market? Somehow. Okay, no. Okay, so the biggest issue is because and now yes, cash flow. Didn't know for my last property. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to mention, because I literally had that realization when I was in my very early on actually. It was right here when I had 4 properties and I wanted to create engineering job, and I realized that I think my cash flow was only like 1,500 or like somewhere around there. It was okay, but it was 4 properties. I look at those 4 properties, I'm just like, I'm supposed to be doing well, but I don't have a lot of, a lot of a net cash flow. And even with that, I'm scared of spending it because I'm worried about like, HVAC, roof, and all that stuff can go out anytime. And then you'll show my cash flow. So I learned one thing that if you want to become a landlord or if you want to run a rental business using a refi process to grow your portfolio, which is what's known as the BRRRR method. Give me like if you know BRRRR method, type 1 for me, just so I know if I need to explain this. If you don't know, type 2, please. What's BRRRR method? Okay. Okay, so very quickly, BRRRR method means you buy something, you buy, renovate, and rent, refi, and repeat. So this is by far the fastest way for you to grow your portfolio because you buy something you force appreciate, you get that rented for the right cash flow. You can approach the bank again to get a refi out of the building, and then you can use that capital to buy the next building over again. So when there's an appreciating market, like what we saw from 2015 all the way to basically 2021, except for 2018, like what we saw is that whatever you buy, not only do you force appreciate, the market will also give you that lift, and you can keep expanding portfolio this way. It was an amazing, I guess, a strategy, especially with the interest rate being so low, right? But the problem with that is that every time that you do a refi, you take out another loan, which means the next project also has to cash flow strong in order for you to be able to cover that cost. So this is why all the landlords at some point will feel like we're equity rich, but we're really cash poor. This is a common feeling that a lot of people will feel. Okay, and refi issue next one, not sure how to cash flow. Exactly. Yep, Diva. That's exactly this method. The problem that this method can cause. Okay, so I learned my lesson very quickly early on. 2017 was very the first time that I realized that this model can put me in danger. Okay, so I learned how to start cashing out some project right here. Whatever I do, in order for me to flip it, sorry, to maintain my cash reserve and avoid the being feeling like cash poor, I had to do one of the two things. One is I might do flip one, I might hold one. Okay, so I always have this flip one to keep my cash reserve relatively higher, and I will hold one to allow that generation wealth to be built. Okay, but imagine if imagine if I only hold, then I have to keep using refi process to expand this portfolio, and there's just no cash flow at all whatsoever, right? So imagine if as I'm scaling this process, I drop a couple properties, I increase my cash reserve, I buy the next property, I do the cash out refi, and the next one I do it again, but then I like all the asset. I never actually put that emotion into it, but I do good work to make sure that it demands the right price. That's how I can keep growing. And as you're scaling it this way, the next thing you're going to find out is that now you can get into sixplex or more, which is commercial building. Once you get into commercial building, cash flow will be stronger. The growth of the equity will be a lot more predictable. And that's how someone like me, people who didn't, a person who didn't even speak any English back in 2008, moving into Canada, I'm able to actually accumulate my portfolio this way. It was all through active project, holding one, and then being very strategic with my cash reserve all the time. That's how I'm able to grow without putting myself in danger. Okay, so biggest secret is right here. In terms of strategy, you want to actually be very careful. And when you hold one, this is where things can also be very interesting. You might be able to do an Airbnb in here with the intention that, that you're doing it from the get-go. And that's why to boost up your cash flow. And then from here, you can look into market neighborhoods. Okay, any questions so far? This is really critical, by the way. Like I want everybody to actually understand the concept here. Okay, and Alicia, yes, Canadian banks are so strict now that cash out refi is even like 2018, 2019 is also when unable to stop qualifying for A lenders as well. So I had to use private lender and then refi through B lenders. And it was okay because interest rate was lower. It was getting lower and lower. So I managed to get away with a lot of that. But imagine right now I had to qualify for B lender. None of the properties will cash flow. Okay, you would do a PM or Airbnb. Which one will eat your cash flow? Sorry, what do you mean by you would do a PM? Would you hire a property manager for Airbnb? Okay, no. Airbnb, if you ever need to hire a property manager, it is pretty much a long-term rental. Because I think a lot of Airbnb management company will charge up to like 30% of your net profit. And it goes through seasonal stuff, right? So they make their money through high season, but the moment that there's low season, you're still paying 30%, you're definitely in the red. Okay, Ken, I'm gonna answer that question. But let me get through this part. So market and neighborhood. One of the things that I always make sure that we do is we also need to find ways to. Okay, let's do this strategy. I'll put that as a growth strategies. Now, the second part of this discussion is how we protect, how we do our risk assessment. So market and neighborhood, especially in the States, is really important. I look at four things between the two category. One is your crime rate. Okay, like I mentioned, when I go into here, I want to make sure the crime rate is not too crazy. And I'm not talking about just the states, overall states, violent crime rate. I'm talking about going into a specific website, pull the police report, and actually understand that specific neighborhood. That's number one. Number two is vacancy rate. This has to be less than 7%. I messed it up here. Actually, both of the category I messed up before. So crime rate is, I didn't know the difference in zip code, how important it is to use zip code to differentiate in the due diligence process. So I accidentally found the property or putting the offer on the property where I thought I got a really, really good deal, but it's in different zip code. Then crime rate ended up becoming a C minus, which end up something that I didn't want to close because I couldn't even find a proper insurance quote. Okay, so that one I had to lose a EMD, so earnest money deposit. The second thing for vacancy rate, 7%. This part is also important because there was one property that I also lost on the EMD because I thought I got a really good deal, which I did, but there was no renter in that specific neighborhood. It's very interesting. The rental market was probably 16-17% over there. And that's when I realized that, okay, it's really, really important that on average, it needs to be less than 7%. Okay. These two will cause stability if we don't pay attention. Okay. And hang on one second. Have you thought about Alabama? Yeah, we got a deal in Alabama actually. Sub 2 deal. Took over the mortgage and then kept that as a rental. What's the best way to get the money in the States? Okay, we'll talk about that in a little bit. What website do you use for crime rate? So, Stop Crime is one of them. This will give you some idea. So, give me an address. Actually, I'll share a couple things actually. Okay. By the way, let me jump into a live deal for you guys quickly. Right here. So for some of you who I spoke to before or joined the last session before, will probably see this deal. Side-by-side duplexes in Ohio. This one, 140K purchase price. Jason from our one of our members, Jason, he was only 26 years old, bought this building. Okay, last year. 140K, 2 units. Each unit, we projected the rent is going to be 1,100 times 2, so 2,200. He ended up getting 1,250 plus 1,300 in here. Okay, so that's how strong the cash flow can be over there. Okay, now I'm going to use this one. I'll just throw it in here for fun. Actually, if I show you everything, we may not be able to finish this, but okay, just very quickly. When I see something like this, I know there are always stuff happening, by the way. There's always stuff happening. But main thing is that I really wanted to go in here. And there's a couple other websites that in the due diligence process that we want to look at. This is past 90 days. It's relatively okay. Okay, so I will use this one to confirm the crime rate. Vacancy rate, I always use niche.com. So I will use niche.com for the very first glance. zip code, and look at what's happening here, B minus. Okay, the only thing that's really not the best is the public schools, right? And I can see there are way more renters than owners in here, which tells me that rental market is pretty strong. Okay, there's more things I can go into details, but those are the high level stuff that I will quickly skim through to make sure that at least it's worth my time to invest a little bit further. Okay, so those are the market neighborhoods. Now let's get into the properties. How many people know 1% rule? What does that mean? Guys, don't be shy. 1% rent to mortgage. Okay. What's 1% rule? Tammy? Jeff?
Rent to cost of the unit or cost of the building.
Cost of the building. Nice. By the way, how many properties do you own?
I don't own any.
Okay, you're okay, but that was a very, very on point explanation. So I can tell you've been studying. So 1% rule means your rent, total monthly rent, equals to your 1% of your purchase price or all-in purchase price. This is a golden rule because if you hit 1% rule, almost guarantee you will cash flow. Okay, and I hit 1% rule all the way until 2017 with even with this building. I bought this one 2017 March 1st closing date. I bought it for 525K. Each unit was renting for, I think at the time it was $650 to $700 for 2-bedroom apartment. Improve it to $1,250, and then after that, RBC gave me an evaluation of $1.02 million. But think about this, right? Even for that, $1,250 times 6, $7,500. That's way over 1% of my all-in purchase price, which was 525K plus closing fees and all that. Okay, so if you hit 1% rule, it's almost guaranteed you will cash flow. And number two that I always look at is what I call building equity. What does this mean? Any volunteer? Yeah, 1% rule in Canada is impossible. And by the way, totally okay if you don't believe in anything that that I say. I'm gonna show it to you after. There's a comfort level versus what's possible. So, and by the way, this is why it's good to have the very engaging conversation because my goal here is very simple. I want to keep explaining that perspective for you guys. I've done it. Certain things I know that it's impossible. Certain things I've done it, and I actually crack the code and figure out how other people do it. So, just want to share that. Okay, you buy with a reduced price and property already has the equity on the purchase. Amazing, John. That's it. So back in if you think about like from 2019, 2018 all the way to 2022, the price point real estate market shot up this way, right? So whatever we didn't buy, we feel like we're chasing the market. Or whatever we buy, the market really just keep pushing it up. Okay, so back then we could do it, but in today's market it's kind of flat, right? Maybe we're expecting about 3%. In some cases, it would be flat completely, or we take a bit of loss. So building equity, part of the reason why this is important in today's market is that if you don't negotiate a better price right now, you don't have a buffer with the fluctuation of the market. And also, if you buy something with building equity plus a bit of rehab that you do to force appreciate, now you can create enough spread for you to do what? Enough spread for what? To refi, to recycle your capital. Okay, so that's why it's extremely important that we hit these two. 1% rule, I'll remove this one, gives you cash flow. And building equity gives you the ability to refi and recycle your capital. Okay, so now everything's like slowly circulating back to this part. Now, let's talk about real case example. Oh, what's this? By the way, how do you guys feel about this session so far? Good or too entry level? Give me some feedback here. How's the pace? Okay so far as well, or it can be a little bit faster? Awesome, awesome. Okay, so just want to share with you guys on that I'm not just, hang on one second, why is it giving me, okay. I'm not just saying it. I want to show you guys a couple different live example. Let's do this. How many people want to do, actually, I'm just gonna use the smaller one. I'll do 3 quick example. By the way, are you guys still good with time? If we need to go over a little bit more time, would that be okay? Like 10 more minutes. Okay, that way I can like literally squeeze in as many deals as possible. Okay, so first of all, I'm gonna go quick with these ones. So side-by-side duplex, the reason why this makes sense is because after factoring everything, literally all the expenses, and we had the building equity, like enough of equity from the purchase price to the ARV, we know that this is a good deal. Okay, so this deal, if you look at the condition of the property, other than the roof right here that we had to fix, everything else is pretty turnkey. And by the way, our definition of turnkey versus their definition of turnkey is very different as well. Okay, so on photos it looks pretty nice, but it's yeah, it's not as close to our standard here in Ontario, BC, or even ARV. Sorry, or Alberta. Ken said, "What's the ARV value?" ARV value is really like we do a lot of comparables, in the area for the past 6 months to determine what this property should sell for when everything's done correctly. Okay, so I'm not gonna go over that because that's too detailed in this code, but I wanted to show you what's possible. In here, when we're running the numbers, not only do we be a little bit more conservative with the income, we also make sure that, so the rent we do, hang on one second, where is it? I put 1,100 per month, and then for the expense, operating expense, I always make sure that there's a property tax, insurance, property management, maintenance, CapEx. Everything has to be in here before we can determine the cash flow. So with this one, rent is 2,200 and vacancy is 10%, right? Jason ended up getting 1,250 plus 1,300. So he actually ended up getting almost $700 or a little bit more in cash flow, net cash flow. And that also calculates everything that we need to be calculating on the operating side of things. Okay, so just want to kind of let you know that even this is a little bit more conservative. Okay, now the things that's different is that we did a cash balance, sorry, what's that called? Credit back on closing, meaning when we close on the property, we know that there's a roof issue. We get the seller to credit back some money on closing, which made the capital required even less for Jason because Jason only had 35K. And then he's just like, hey, I want you to have a little bit more reserve if possible. And then we suggest this angle. And then we basically just got that done. So this is a pretty good win for him. And obviously, because the first project, he's now looking into the second project as well. Okay. Second thing, so this is a duplex. I want to show you people who want to do even bigger value add approach. So Marion Road. This is a flip that we have done so far. Last year, 6 months project. So show you guys one thing. I'll use Zillow so that you guys can literally see, like from here. A property like this. Oh. This condition into this condition. Okay, again, photo does the work. Basically just it looks like a rental right now to our standard. But if you notice the flooring, the transition, it doesn't actually, we don't actually do all the full renovation over there. You don't need to because people can't afford more. Okay, so from here, what we end up doing is, oh, back to listing. Let's go down here. Sold price was 135K, June 26th, and then when we sold it was December 15th, 260. It was a little bit higher than our expectation, because when we ran the number, we wanted to make sure we're budgeting everything. So we budget 244, so 135 to 244. So we end up making a little bit more money in this flip. Again, flip one, hold one, to keep our reserve high as we're scaling the portfolio. Okay. Good. I'll jump into the next deal very quickly, and then yeah, and then we can open up some Q&A. Now, a project like this is where I get a little bit more exciting, which is sixplex or more. This is where the true scaling point really happens, because if you improve the rent, you get to also improve the property value. Okay, and it's a very, like, you don't have to rely on what's being sold around you. It's all based on the cap rate calculation. So when I started looking at this, I like 4, 2, 3, 4. I like a building like this where I get to touch and it's in a decent neighborhood. And it's more like a row house over 1950, 60, so that I don't have to worry about the late inspection and all that stuff. Parking in the back, and I get to improve the building. So a building like this, where you get to have multiple streams of income coming in, and you get to have a very predictable way to improve the value and do a cash out refi. This one, 490K. Like, you can't even get a condo in Toronto, BC, or Calgary, right? What you pay for, like in a tier 1 city, gets you 7-unit building, you know, in the States. And that's why I really wanted to focus on tier 2 city. And that's why we're growing this way. Okay, so once I really figure this out, obviously scaling becomes no problem. Another one, this is another building that we closed on, 6-unit building. We actually turned this one into Airbnb. So, sorry, not Airbnb, it's more for midterm rental for travel nurses. This is a very nice neighborhood, B+, okay, in University Heights. And the price point for this building is 600K. So it's actually on the higher end. 600K for the building. The parking's in the back. There's a garage in there, but we noticed that there's one tenant who lived there paying 1,600, which was significantly higher than anybody else. And then we asked him, and he's just, oh, I'm travel nurses. I'm here for like 6 months, 8 months. If I can still renew the units. And the reason why he's able to pay for that is because hospital provides a subsidy for their rent as well. Okay, so once we switch over to all the midterm renter in here for travel nurses, which by the way, Cleveland Clinic is the biggest employer in Cleveland specifically. So we know the market, we know the tenant profile in that specific market. So we can turn this into 1,600 times 6, which is going to give us 9,600 in rent. And we purchased it at $600. So it's way over 1.5% rule, not even 1% rule. And we know we will cash flow pretty strongly just from this building. Okay, similarly with 7-unit building, if I look into the cash flow after it's been stabilized, it's $2,500 per month. Okay, $2,500 USD, by the way. So times 1.3738, you know, for the currency exchange. Okay, so this is what got me a lot more excited, because in Canada, we're trying to do a lot of work just to do a conversion so that we can break even. And once we break even, we still have to we're exposed to the risk to have the wrong tenants living in our units. And if we need to go through landlord tenant board just once, it's already not worth the headache, in my opinion, right? So there are money to be made if you have a huge size of capital that you can focus on tier 1 city through development permitting process. But again, that becomes a business, active business. What I like to do is I want to use real estate. It's still an active business, but at least try to be as passive as possible so that I get to focusing on not just one project management, but focusing on getting more deals in, getting more capital in through friends, family, colleagues, clients, buy more properties and build portfolio this way to replace my income. Okay, my mission is very simple. For everybody who's in this call, my mission is to make sure that I can use real estate because I've done it myself. I've seen my parents do it, and I'm doing this for my kids. You know, because I know that in tier one city, if I don't pivot, at some point later on, other than my own personal asset or portfolio that I built, there's no way for them to actually own any property or have their home ownership in 20, 30 years when they grow up. If I don't do anything right now, there's no way for me to keep growing my portfolio, and which end up eliminate a lot of their future options. So my goal here is very simple. I want to just provide everybody with a 5 to 10 year plan with the right toolbox that I built for myself and for my team members, for my communities, so that you can stop trading your hours for dollars. Okay. I want to use real estate to remove the responsibility of your active household income, and you can see that plan for the next 5 to 10 years, so that you can only work because you want to, not because you have to. Okay, so that's pretty much it for what I can share in this call. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions you guys have right now. Whew, feel like I'm losing my voice. How do you guys feel? More or less aligned with what you guys are thinking, or very different? Okay, Alicia, most of your deals, if it's for commercial deals, a lot of them were actually starting from MLS. Wholesalers. So I also run, like I also have my own acquisition team. We go right after delinquent sellers. So not gonna get into too much detail, but I source probably 90% of my deals through off market. And same with our communities. Okay, because that's the only way that you can really get that built-in equity for Kevin's. Yeah, I'll send you a recording, no problem. But that's how I'm able to really get that building equity for each project. Because if without that, I'm not willing to pull trigger. That's just my against my investing philosophy. I need to be making money on the buy. Okay. Second thing is how many rentals do you own? Do you Yeah. So Amit, we'll talk about my own portfolios. Actually, I think I showed it here already. It's growing right now. And then we started doing things slightly differently. But up until last year, we got 44 units between the 3 buildings. Okay. Happy to provide you with the address, but that's a whole nother discussion that we'll have after. Okay. Do we as a Canadian purchasing it? How do we as a Canadians purchase? So you guys will be surprised how many like Canadian occupies 34% of purchase foreign as a foreign investors or foreigners in the US. It's not a new concept. It's been done over and over again. You literally just personal opinion. You set up an LLC. You just purchase it for investment property. If it's for personal use, different story. You can put it under your personal name. Okay, what's the next step? I'll actually send a link here. If you guys feel like this is helpful and you guys want to chat a little bit more than happy to hop on a discussion with you guys. And then obviously I will be explaining. First thing first is that I want to always assess whether or not this actually makes sense to you guys to do. So I'll ask some questions, and if it makes sense, I'll go over the details. If it doesn't, typically I'm very upfront with anybody who got on the call. So if you want to connect a little bit more and try to see if this makes sense to you, I'll drop my link here right now so that you guys can connect with me afterwards. Okay, so save that link, and I hope to connect with you guys. Let me power through those questions. So I'd like to know how to get fundings to do it. So funding, just so you know, my flip project, flip project over there in the States, you can also get a rehab financing. So like they can use a cash, like whatever available cash in your bank account as collateral. The lenders over there in the States, there are 4,000 lenders. In Canada, there are, I think, in total, probably like 70 plus lenders. So the dynamic and competitiveness and options are very different. The goal here over there is to find out who's more Canadian friendly. Okay, and honestly, we figured out a bunch of contacts, and that's what we prioritize our members for. So yeah, getting lending is not an issue. And also there's a Harmony lending, private lending over there, in the States. The most important thing is to approach the lenders with a DSCR. DSCR loan product is what you need for any purchase as a Canadian without any credits, any US credits. Okay, Michelle, now foreclosures. I always go after pre-foreclosures. I've done some auction deals as well. Okay, some of our members are doing the auction deals. Auction is more like shooting in the dark, but you can typically get, based on my experience, you can typically get 40 to 45% of ARV. So huge discount. If the properties are worth about 200K, you can get it around 70, 80K, around there. But then you're shooting in the dark, as in you can't really do inspection for the property, and then and you're bidding against other people, through virtual auction. I've done that multiple times actually. Okay, what's the minimum threshold needed to start with the first commercial property? Minimum threshold, what do you mean? Like the size of capital or down pay? Loan to value? Oh. Okay, I'll just make a couple assumptions here. Capital, okay. Commercial property is typically about 35%. Just keep that in mind. Really, really hard to get it under 35%. So if you're looking at a project, for example, like 500K, right? Just use 35% plus. Like you need to have minimum 35% plus the closing, plus the rehab cost and all that stuff. Okay, and that should get you started already. At least a mortgage broker will be able to recognize that they can use that. I notice a lot of foreclosure auctions in the States. Yes, I do. It's a whole nother strategy. Every single deal sourcing method is its own operation. That's why I go after delinquent sellers. I actually go after pre-foreclosure. Because once you enter into foreclosure, you have a lot of parties that gets involved. In auction, I like to go with a pre-foreclosure in auction. Auction is at the end, they have to sell. They're just looking for the highest bid. So you can go in there, and every single week on Monday and Wednesdays, you can actually bid on those properties. Okay, so very interesting process, but it's also time and mental training, for me. Okay, so pre-foreclosure is my go-to method, but there's typically a lot of ways to source the off-market deals. Do you also purchase properties or just for Section 8 rentals? Section 8 is one of the ways to really get a guaranteed income coming in every single month. Okay, so Section 8 brochure will cover up to 70-80% of the rent payment coming from the government. And the tenants, Section 8 tenants, will get kicked out of the program if they go through eviction process or if they keep violating, getting complaints. So when I'm dealing with Section 8, there's actually typically a little bit more security because eviction order will stay on the record for the next 5 years. And it's going to get extremely challenging for them to qualify for the next property. So with Section 8, I know I'm secure. The only problem is that Section 8 tenant profile is more on the bigger range. Let's put it this way, right? So you got a D-class neighborhood, people who might be on Section 8. You get people who are in B-class neighborhood who's also on Section 8. So you just need to make sure that you're finding the right boots on the ground team that can find the right tenant profile for you. Okay. One last thing is that Section 8 is not as good as what you see on the internet. Biggest issue is that the qualification process sometimes can take 3 to 4 months. It doesn't happen immediately. And there's an inspection that needs to that you need to go through. Okay, so pros and cons, and only use it, in my opinion, as needed. Don't use it as a primary strategy. Okay, do you need an LLC to buy multifamily? Yes. I don't ever do anything on the personal. I think about this, right? Our asset here in Canada is worth like $800K, $1 million, or even more. Over there, the property is 100K. So if anything happens, I don't want other people to have the reach into my personal asset. So I want that LLC to create that separation. Okay, and it's very cheap to do it. Once you get the LLC, you get the EIN number, and then you can start making offer. Minimum cash okay. 7:05. Okay, I'm controlling the time pretty well today. Canadians should be opening up the budget around 400 in Ohio. No, because you can leverage the mortgage, right? So 200K will get you a multifamily already in Ohio pretty easily. And 30-40%, so we can close on and build cash flow almost right away. Yeah. Travel nurse tenants, if you can, yes. Okay. Don't you get double tax? I'm glad someone asked that question. So very quickly, okay, I'm not the accountant, but I'll show you exactly what my setup is on the high level. Before I explain that, by the way, everything I talk about right here, just so you know, when we're doing the deal analysis, just look at the next page. Okay, this is the stuff that I was literally doing for a property, a multifamily building for one of our members. He's in the process to acquire. So strategies, market neighborhoods, and properties. So just want to let you guys know that not holding back anything. Like this is a proper session that I'm trying to provide to you guys. Now, with the LLC legal setup, I'm not the accountant, so always consult with your cross-border accountant. But here's the thing: doing this is actually how I started. I even have the US HOCO. Biggest issue with this setup is that it end up costing me back then, by the way, almost 10K to get everything set up, and then also annual filing fee. You don't need any of that. All you need is right here. Simple setup initially. Okay, your corporation hosts LLC, hosts the properties. Just do this. And because the main reason why people are overly concerned about double taxation is that you're worrying about the profit that haven't actually been earned yet. I usually tell people that if you want to get everything set up the way that you truly want it for your empire, wait until you're scaling in the scaling phase already. Wait until you have like 3 or 4 properties. Okay, at least have taxes to pay before you set this up. Otherwise, you're just paying for nothing, and it keeps coming back to you every single year, right? So my rule of thumb is very simple: use a lot of write-off strategy initially. Avoid having to pay a bunch of stuff, right? And wait until you're tax payable to IRS or CRA for over 5,000. That's when you think about double taxation, because that becomes a problem that you need to solve. Okay, so don't solve that problem when it's not even a problem for you yet. Okay. Last thing, boots on the ground team. I want to prove you why this idea is feasible. That's how I run a lot of my operation. When we buy a properties, these are all the projects that we do. From October 31st. So not only did I get the contractor to send me the video walkthrough. Okay. Oh, this one is the wrong one. Hang on 1 second. Let me just pick whatever, anything. So it was pretty bad. Video walkthrough. See where the progress is, right? And then you just need to have a different set of team to help you verify the work is actually being done, not just based on the contractor, right? And then we source the supplies separately from the contractor. We pay contractor their labor costs based on the milestone, and then we send other people to go check out the progress. And that's how you can run things remotely, because you're going to have the inspection report from the very beginning. You're going to have this person to check out the progress, right? And the person can also be paying attention to all the things that we need them to pay attention to. And as long as you pass the home inspector's standard, or Section 8 social workers standard, or Section 8 inspector's standard, then we're good to go already. Okay, so those are the things that we do. We do build a strong boots on the ground team, and that's why our our vendor list typically is very, very like there's a lot of vendors and a lot of people that we're testing out on a regular basis. You gotta keep testing out the local team, and once in a while fly out down there, not just to view your properties, but to meet with these people and create that relationship, so that when you're not around or when you're not in the town, you have multiple different contacts that you can reach out to. So instead of one contractor, you got 3 or 4. Instead of one plumber, you have 3 or 4. right? And then almost every single category, you just need to keep building that list and then filter out the ones that you just feel like is kind of wasting your time or not being professional. Okay, gut feeling will really kick in once you talk to enough people, and that's what we've been doing. Remote investing, the goal here, so not the goal, the name of the game is to keep building out that contact list to the point where you're not scared of losing people. Diva, let's talk a little bit more. Like I mentioned, I use this to connect with people, and if you guys can get enough value to get things started, I'm not asking anything, but just give me a testimonial afterwards. If you can get started without our support, I would love to reconnect with you. Once you get that first property and just take a picture, just be like, oh, that session really gave me the inspiration to get started. If you want to kind of connect a little bit more and see how we can help, we'll set up a call. So use that link that I just posted. Book a time, and then within first like 15-20 minutes, I'll know whether or not I can help you, right? And then if I can't, I'll let you guys know so that we're respecting each other's time. But if we feel like it's a good fit, I'll talk a little bit more, and then we'll turn that into another session for you. Okay. Lastly, I just want to get an idea. How do you guys feel? Like, give me some feedback in this call, good and bad, so that I can improve it for the next session. Authentic, yes. That's what I'm always aiming for. Useful. Thank you, appreciate it. Awesome. Okay, we're way over time, so thank you guys so much. And then honestly, feel free to book a call. Again, no obligation, it's just get to know each other a little bit more individually. So hope to connect with you guys all. And then once again, thanks for hanging out with me, and I hope this is useful for you guys. Take care, guys. Bye.